Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the X106 podcast. I'm Ryan Elliot, as always, and I am joined, as always, by Evan Brown.
Hello.
Evan, how are you today?
Doing good. A little under the weather, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, hopefully you're feeling good enough to do a solid podcast.
Always.
We're talking a little bit of Northwest football, then we'll get into the bigger picture of college football into the D1 stage, and then maybe a little bit of NFL at the end. So let's start with Northwest as give you a little bit of recap of what happened last Saturday. They were at Bearcat Stadium taking on the University of Central Oklahoma, and they downed the Broncos 17-10 to increase the winning streak to 36, go to 6-0 on the season, and keep a hold of their number one ranking in both of the polls. So, Evan, give me a little bit of your thoughts from what you saw Saturday from this Bearcat team.
UCO this year is definitely more of a threat than they have been in past years, in my opinion. They have scored a lot of points, especially against I believe it was an Emporia State the week before our game. So a very high-powered offense, and we definitely, when they came into Northwestern, kind of gave us a scare. They were up 3-0, if I'm not mistaken, early. We didn't score in the first, and then after that, it was just kind of all Bearcats. It wasn't a blow you away kind of win. It was 17-10 final score. But you look at what the defense did. I mean, we allowed, I believe, 17 total rushing yards. So, I mean, when you can definitely, just take away, one side of an offense is, like the run game, you really force a team into passing, and you're not really as surprised by some of their, play calling and stuff like that. So, all in all, I mean, it was a good win. Wasn't anything crazy about it. I mean, defense stand out for sure. Other than that, I'm always happy with the W.
This was a poor offensive performance from both teams. Mm-hmm. Northwest did have 431 total yards, but again, as we've seen in the past, they weren't able to finish the drives. There were a lot of drives that they stalled out around midfield and had to kick some short punts, and a couple of times where they got into the red zone and missed a field goal or had a penalty and backed them up into that midfield territory where they were going to have to punt. Mm-hmm. And that's, if you're able to gain a lot of yards, then you're in pretty good shape, but you have to finish those drives if you want to win the big-time football games. And while UCO, yes, is an improved team, I don't know that this was a big-time football game, a big-time matchup against a school that has a really good chance of knocking you off. I mean, they were up 17-3 up until a minute 34 to go in the game. This was the dominant defensive performance, but this offense has some problems to fix. Issues in the running game, issues with the offensive line. I think the biggest thing is they need to give the ball to Jordan Thompson. They need to make him a feature part of this offense, because from what we saw Saturday, he's a kid that hits the hole harder than anybody. He hits the hole faster, and that will give the offensive line a little bit less pressure to hold their blocks as long. It won't give the defense a chance to close that hole before he gets there, and it's just going to get you more yardage. And the more yardage you get in the run game, the easier it's going to be to pop off a 75-yard play action pass down the field to whoever it may be, Sean Bain, Quincy Woods. They have those weapons. If Bain can get himself healthy, that'll make the play action pass a lot more successful if you can get Jordan Thompson going in the run game. And then I think if you get Jordan Thompson going in the run game, that will open up the run game for the rest of your running backs, because they're going to be more weary of Thompson. You can use him as a decoy coming out of a slot. You can
move him across the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, do all of those kinds of things. And also, I think seeing him hit the hole, if Jordan Thompson gashes him for a couple of 20-yard runs, all of a sudden the linebackers are on their heels. Yeah. And that will make those holes stay open a little bit longer. The linebackers are taking a step back before they move forward, and that's something that I think could be an answer for this offense. 23 first downs is a solid number, and it's just – but the defense was an issue when it comes to penalties. They gave UCO 6 first downs off of penalties. That's something that they can't be doing. Even with UCO, a team who's offense is so explosive. You can't give them yards like that. They were lucky to get away with it, and the defense played really well outside of that. But I think there are some things that need to be addressed, and I think if there's a week to address them, this is it. Headed down to Tahlequah, Oklahoma to take on Northeastern State, a team that's been in the bottom of the conference for a while, a team that's just struggling at this point, especially defensively. And this is a game where you have a chance to work out some of those issues on the offense.
I think so. Going back to the Jordan Thompson discussion, I think what we're going to see until we come closer to playoff time is kind of a running back tandem. I think we are going to stick with Brody McMahon, maybe not getting the start, but until he gains some of that confidence, we're going to see a Jordan Grove, Brody McMahon, and Jordan Thompson. Just so that confidence does get there, I say closer to playoff time. I think he will. That role definitely will expand because the kid's just so talented. You can't not give him the ball. So I think Coach definitely has plans of making his role expand. I just don't think he wants to do it so quickly and maybe ruin some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, just ruin some of the progress that he's already made, sort of thing.
And that's something that you look at and you see a team like this. Coach Wright has said it the best. Yeah, it's okay. 17-10, game's over. It's a win. We're on to Northeastern State. Mm-hmm. It's next week. It's we're looking to improve. We're looking to get better, and that's something where you take a look at this week and you have a chance to get Emmanuel Jones back. I don't know if they're going to play him because it's Northeastern State. I don't think they need him in that game, so they may sit him out one more just to make sure he's 100% coming into Lindenwood for homecoming. But you look at you have a chance to get Emmanuel Jones back, which is just going to add another aspect to that run game. He's a similar runner to what Jordan Thompson is. I don't think he's quite as fast, but he's a little bit. He's more experienced than Thompson. He's had
maybe a little more physical.
Some better chance, and he's had some better chance to work with this offense, work with this offensive line, and kind of get used to things. So he's going to be another weapon in the backfield that Northwest has missed when he gets a chance to come back. The other thing is this defense just got better. Jared Bishop has returned from his 6-week suspension and is now back on the field for this Northwest, will be back on the field for this Northwest defense. And if there's anything no one in the country wanted to see, it's the Northwest defense getting even better. And that's something that, and he provides an interesting aspect to this defense that I don't think you see as much, is that hybrid safety linebacker. Mm-hmm. He's a guy that he's listed on the roster as a linebacker, but he's about the size of a safety. He's 5'11", about 205 pounds, and he is that Cam Chancellor style of
hard hitter.
Yeah, he's a you put him on the field as a linebacker, but he can cover. Mm-hmm. I think he had 3 picks last year, including 2 returned for touchdowns, as well as he can hit you. And he can hit you hard. He's the speed coming off of the outside of the defense at a linebacker position that I think is there a little bit for this Northwest team, but that's just going to add another dimension to this defense, and that's something that I think can propel the defense forward to playing, if it's possible, even better than they have.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll be looking for next week.
It's going to be fun to watch.
It is going to be fun to watch, and a chance to score some points against a Northeastern State defense that has struggled this year. Allowed a lot of points. They allowed 61 to Missouri Western a couple of weeks ago. And so a chance to get this offense back on track. As now we'll take a look at some of the D1 games from last week. Just really quickly, I want from you, Evan, I want the upset of the week and the game of the week.
Well, it's kind of easy to go with the upset of the week. Definitely the Oklahoma-Iowa State. I was hanging out at a friend's house, and we were all watching the game outdoors, and had a little camper set up. Anyway, we were watching the game. I got there with maybe about 2.5 minutes left, and I could see the stress building on his face as that clock started to tick down. And I think Oklahoma had a 3-and-out or something, and Iowa State got the ball back, and they ended up scoring. And my buddy definitely freaked out. Yeah, not a good response for him. But the Iowa State game just blew me out of the water. Who would have thought that Iowa State of all teams would march into Stillwater and just shock the nation almost? Well, not almost. They did do it. The number 3 Oklahoma Sooners definitely went down, and I for sure didn't expect it, and I know it wasn't a game that we both said could be a trap game for Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. So that for me definitely just has to be the upset of the week.
The thing that I look at is this Oklahoma defense is not good. It's not good at all, and that's where the issue has lied. Kyle Kemp, the Iowa State backup quarterback up to that point, I'm pretty sure he's earned the job now after beating Oklahoma in Norman.
Yeah.
But 18 for 24, 343 yards on 18 completions and 3 touchdowns. That's something that when a sixth of your completions are touchdowns, that's you. If you're Oklahoma, you can't be allowing things like that, and that's where I think the problem lied with Oklahoma is that the defense was just not good. And, one of the other upsets that I'll mention was LSU over Florida. Danny Etling of LSU, 9 for 16 for 125 yards and a touchdown. This was a defensive matchup, I guess you could say. I don't know whether it was a defensive matchup or just poor offense, but this is a Florida team that there's something wrong there offensively, and there's something wrong with LSU offensively too. These are two teams that almost should have been threatening Alabama in the SEC, and neither of them are. As now, LSU is 4-2, Florida's 3-2. LSU has the loss to Troy, and Florida has a loss to LSU, and they're both out of the playoff race. They're both out of the SEC race at this point, and disappointing there for both Florida and LSU in a game of just Florida had a chance to take the win over LSU, just walk in there, dominate this poor LSU team, and they didn't. And so that, I think, was the other upset that we saw this week. How about a game of the week?
Personally, let me look around here. I just had it. We were both talking about it last week. Michigan State, Michigan. We knew it would be, a physical kind of game. And I guess it is another form of an upset. We knew it'd be a physical, defensive game, much like we saw the year before with the punt debacle. Nothing quite that crazy happened this year. But Michigan State really stuck it to them early and dug down deep in the trenches on defense for the rest of the game, and showed that they're a team to be reckoned with up in the Big Ten. You look at John O'Korn for Michigan, 16 for 35, didn't even break 200 yards with 3 interceptions. So definitely some issues at quarterback. I know that Coach Harbaugh isn't very happy about the loss. I'm pretty sure Michigan dropped down to 17, somewhere around there in the rankings. Didn't expect that from this Michigan team this year. Definitely not one of the the best Michigan teams we've seen in the past couple of years, but it's one of the better ones. So I expected a lot more. I expected them to handle Michigan State, especially at home. But that's one thing they haven't done the past couple of years.
And it always seems like between Michigan and Michigan State, something gets in the middle of the game. And this week it was the torrential rainfall in Ann Arbor. They were playing in what looked like fog, but ended up just being super, super heavy rain. And it was really a fun game to watch between those two teams because of the rain, and it made things. It was an ugly game because of the rain, but it was really fun to watch. Both defenses were playing really well. Neither team could score there for a while, and Michigan had a chance at the end of the game, but Michigan State was able to keep it away. The other game that I thought was pretty good was Miami, Florida State. Miami taking the win in the final seconds on the touchdown pass from Malik Rozier. And he had 3 touchdowns on the day. He wasn't very accurate, but those 3 touchdowns are what propelled Miami to the win. Almost all of the scoring, except for a field goal from Florida State, came in the second half of this game. It was 3-0 Florida State at halftime, and then Miami rattled off 10 in the third unanswered, and then ended up coming away with the 24-20 win over the Seminoles. And who would have thought that Florida State would be 1-3 right now, outside of the top 25, and absolutely reeling. This team, they had a tough schedule, but boy, Florida State has been not good. They gave Miami a game, but they are missing DeAndre Francois at this point.
Yeah, ever since he went down, it's kind of like what we're seeing in the NFL right now with the Giants. All the injuries is kind of like season's over. But, the Florida State team still has talent. The season isn't over. They may be able to fight for a bowl game. come into the year, but it's definitely going to be an uphill battle, and it's going to be a struggle.
All right. So, as we look ahead here, let's just look ahead all the way. And right now, in your mind, Evan, not necessarily if the season ended today, but as this season goes along, who do you see in your top 4 for the college football playoff?
Well, I mean, you got to go. Hold on, let me get back here. You got to go with obviously 1 and 2, Alabama, Clemson. I don't really see a whole lot of potential for them to lose out, I guess, or to have one of those losses at the end of the season. It's tough. I really like Wisconsin, and I think a few more wins that people kind of drop people's jaw. They handle people. I think Wisconsin has a potential to slip in there, and my 4th team, it's just tough, this early. I'm liking Ohio State. They do have the loss. They're potentially one of those teams that could sneak in. And then Washington and Washington State. I really like those 2 teams as well. It's really hard to pick, but I think the 2 for sure, obviously Alabama, Clemson, and I'll go ahead and throw Washington in that mix, and I will throw, it's hard. I don't know. What's yours for? And I'll maybe go off that.
Okay. Well, I think this could be the first year that all 5 Power 5 champions are undefeated in the playoffs history. And you look at Bama goes undefeated in the SEC, wins the SEC. I think Clemson goes undefeated in the ACC and wins that conference. I think Penn State goes undefeated and wins the Big Ten. So those are the top 3. And then if Washington can sneak out undefeated and win the Pac-12 and TCU can sneak out, that's the big question, is will TCU be undefeated at the end of the year? I think they will win the Big 12 because they're almost locked in to play Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game at this point with Oklahoma's loss. But will they be undefeated? Can they beat Oklahoma and be undefeated going into the Big 12 championship game? And if they win the Big 12, they'll be 13-0 and sitting as the 5th undefeated team. So I think we could have Alabama, Clemson, Penn State, Washington, TCU all undefeated. And I think if that's the situation, you've got 5 teams in 4 spots. Clemson, Alabama, Penn State are 3 obvious ones. So then all of a sudden you're down to Washington and TCU for that final spot, and I think the Big 12 is just not going to get the credit that it deserves. I think they put Washington in for that 4th spot. So Alabama would play Washington, Clemson would play Penn State, the winners would face off for the national championship game.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and finish mine then. I'll go ahead with Alabama, Clemson. Those 2 are locks. I'm stuck in a rut between Penn State and Wisconsin. I really like both teams. Obviously, Saquon Barkley has just been going off all year. I feel like Penn State just has more potential just to maybe get one of those upsets. I don't know. That's just kind of the feeling I have, later in the season. So I'll go ahead and toss Wisconsin in there. And, I'll bet on them. I'll go TCU. I will. I'll say the Big 12 does sneak it in.
Gets their credit and goes. So you got Alabama, Clemson, Wisconsin knocks off Penn State to take the Big 10 crown, and then TCU finishes the season undefeated in the Big 12, or at least maybe gets some help from a loss from both Washington and Washington State or something along those lines, and works their way into the top 4. That would be an interesting playoff. We'd have TCU versus Alabama. That may not go well because TCU's defense is not very good. And they have the best defense in the Big 12, but that's not saying much.
No,
it's like no, I'm not going to say that. Never mind. Anyway, but it's And then you're looking at. You mentioned was it Wisconsin? Wisconsin.
Yes.
Wisconsin would play Clemson. That would be a fun game. Clemson's got the best defense in the country, and Wisconsin's got a good defense and a dangerous run game as always. So that would be a fun playoff. As we take a really quick look at the games this week, I just want real quick your game of the week.
All right, let me slide on over, and let me get there really fast. Sorry. there hasn't been really a lot of great matchups, I don't think, this week. But I'll go ahead just by looking at it. I'm really kind of worried about where'd they go? Washington State this week. Washington went into Cal last week, handled them. But Washington State's going also into Cal again this week. So definitely, not a huge chance for an upset, but I'm saying there's some potential there. It'll be interesting to see how Washington State can handle, the Cal crowd, because they always bring them out. So, I'll just go ahead with that game. Washington State at the University of California.
Okay. I like that pick. I think, Pac-12 game, that could be a shootout, and those two teams, Cal's a dangerous football team. I think you're right that Washington State's going to have to come in and bring their A game to take down the Golden Bears down there in Berkeley. But the one I'm looking at is, I think, is the game every week is the Red River shootout, Red River rivalry, Red River showdown. It's been named all kinds of different things at this point. But Oklahoma and Texas, I think you look at an Oklahoma team trying to rebound from a tough loss to Iowa State, and a Texas team that, after a terrible showing against Maryland in week 1, have bounced back, just destroyed San Jose State, gave USC a game, beat Iowa State, and then beat Kansas State last week. I think this is the week that Texas can prove that maybe they're the team, because right now they're leading the Big 12. They're one of the teams at the top of the Big 12. They're 2-0 in conference play. They've got Oklahoma and Oklahoma State in back-to-back weeks. I think if they can get through that with one win, maybe this is a team that's in danger of knocking off TCU and making things interesting in the Big 12. I think, you look at a team like this, and you see if they can play tough against Oklahoma. We already saw from Oklahoma that they can lose to anybody. With that defense, they can lose to anybody, and they can also beat anybody. And that's what I think is interesting as they take on this Texas team. They very well may show up at AT&T Stadium in Dallas and just absolutely wipe the floor with Texas.
Yeah.
Or they may show up and play a very bad football game and get beat very bad by this Texas team. I think that's where the intrigue comes in, is how will Oklahoma play coming off of the loss, and how can Texas come in and give Oklahoma a scare of being absolutely – I mean, if they lose to Texas, they're absolutely eliminated from the playoff.
Yeah.
And absolutely eliminated from any chance to win the Big 12.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
So that's my game of the week in college football. And so now let's move on to the NFL as you're listening to the X106 podcast, and we take a look at this week's NFL games. And after an interesting week last week with some games going a little bit differently than I think a lot of people saw it, it becomes quite the week as we see the Thursday night game, Eagles and Panthers, a battle of 4-1 teams. Give me your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, the Eagles have been, for lack of a better term, rolling everyone aside from the Chiefs this entire season. The Panthers have had some question marks early. Cam Newton hasn't really been there as much as they'd like him to. He's had a couple great weeks back to back, and so I think it's going to be a all-out air battle this week in Carolina. I think Carson Wentz has another big week. I think he had 4 touchdowns this last week. I'd say the Eagles might pull this one out on the road against the Panthers.
And as we look, there are a couple of other good matchups this week as we see the Packers and the Vikings. The 4-1 Packers head to Minnesota to take on the 3-2 Vikings, a pair of teams that do not like each other.
No.
Not even a little bit. And that'll be a fun one. That's noon on Fox on Sunday. We also see Lions and Saints. The Lions coming off a tough loss to the Panthers at home. They're looking to rebound, sitting at 3-2 against the 2-2 Saints, whose defense is not that great, but two explosive offenses in that game. And that also at noon on Fox. And Rams-Jaguars, the other game. This is at 3:05 on Fox. The Rams at 3-2 head into Jacksonville to take on a surprising Jaguars team. I don't think anybody expected the Jaguars to be 3-2 right now and beat the Steelers as bad as they did this past week, 30-9. 5 interceptions and 2 defensive touchdowns. Are we looking at the best defense in the NFL in the Jaguars?
If not the best defense, they're absolutely the best secondary in the NFL at this moment. And I think that the Rams are going to struggle. I don't think Jared Goff has the intangibles yet in the NFL to kind of pick apart a Jaguars defense that has been destroying everything. And I mean, it's not just the secondary. Calais Campbell has been going off all year. I mean, he got their name turned to Saxonville after 1 week. Yeah, the Jaguars might be for real this year, and we need a couple more games to increase the sample size to really make sure about it. But they are a scary team, and especially defensively.
I think the biggest issue you look at with the Jacksonville Jaguars is if Blake Bortles has to play quarterback, then it's going to be a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Bortles has not been good when the team has had to rely on him. When he can turn around and hand the ball to Leonard Fournette, he's been great.
Rely on him.
Yeah. But if they get into backed up third and long situations all game long, then it's not going to happen.
Mm-mm.
And if they can lean on their defense for only so long, and so I think if they can keep the pressure off of the shoulders of Blake Bortles and put it elsewhere, I think they have a chance to be a good football team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at some point the pressure is going to have to go on the shoulders of Blake Bortles, especially when you get late in the season when you're fighting for a playoff spot. And I think that's where the Jaguars may fall apart. And lastly, we'll take a look at the Chiefs hosting the Steelers this week after a big win in Houston on Sunday Night Football. Is this the most dangerous game we've seen yet for the Chiefs? Are the Chiefs in trouble on Sunday?
I don't want to say they're in trouble. It's definitely not the most dangerous week, I think. I was honestly scared about the Houston game. Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and say we got a little bit lucky with some injuries. But I mean, you're not going to wish injuries on anybody, but you'll take them if they're on the other team. And if it makes your path to the W easier, you're going to take it. I think the only thing that really scares me about the Steelers matchup is that Ben Roethlisberger threw 5 picks last week, so he's going to probably be on his A game. And Antonio Brown's obviously scary with the issue. I don't want to say issues, but small issues. Let's go with that. Small issues we've been having with the secondary. I think Antonio Brown might give us a run for our money, like quite literally running into the end zone. So I think the defense can handle it, and I think our offense isn't going to have many problems. The run defense for the Steelers has been down, especially from last year and the year before, where it was just almost like you're probably not going to get more than 15 yards. But definitely the run defense has gotten slightly worse than in past years, so Kareem Hunt will probably expose those holes a little bit. Overall, I think the Chiefs are lucky that we're at home. I think that's going to play a big role, big factor in the game. But overall, I do believe the Chiefs are going to come out with a win this Sunday.
It's pretty common knowledge that the Pittsburgh Steelers don't play very well on the road.
Yeah.
But it's also pretty common knowledge that if the Pittsburgh Steelers lose 30-9 to the Jaguars the week before, they're coming in angry.
Yep.
And an angry Pittsburgh Steelers team is not what you want to see going anywhere because they have the weapons to absolutely put the hurt on a defense between Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback. This is a team that can put 40 on you in a half, and all of a sudden it's over. And so that's where I think the danger comes in, is the angry Pittsburgh Steelers team coming in. I think if you can put some pressure on Ben Roethlisberger, you can alleviate that a little bit, get him a little flustered, a little frustrated, a little bit just uneasy in the pocket. I think you can alleviate that a little bit. If you can press and hit Antonio Brown off the line of scrimmage, he's going to be a little bit flustered, and then it all falls on Le'Veon Bell, who I'm not sure if the Steelers can 100% rely on at this point. He's been a little bit up and down this season. The other thing you mentioned was the Steelers' run defense. They gave up 181 yards to Leonard Fournette last week, and I think Kareem Hunt has a field day with this Steelers defense, and he could go off for a big-time number. I'm not going to say how big, but because that's going to get me in trouble, because if I say he's going to rush for 215 yards and he rushes for 5, then I'm going to be in trouble. But I think he's got a chance to go off for a pretty big number against the Steelers defense. I think if all of those things come together, then you can beat the Steelers pretty handily. If they don't, if you can't get pressure on Ben Roethlisberger, if you can't chip Antonio Brown coming off the line, if Kareem Hunt doesn't have a big day running the football, then all of the sudden things can start to go awry, and the Steelers can gain some momentum, and you're going to be in trouble. Because when the Steelers have momentum, they may be the most dangerous team in the NFL. They're probably the best 3-2 team at the moment. I think they had a total lapse in ability and a total lapse in mental capacity last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I don't expect to see them do that 2 weeks in a row. I think it's going to be tough for the Kansas City Chiefs this week, but at Arrowhead Stadium, crowd's going to be absolutely raucous. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere because the Steelers are in town.
Yeah.
And that's,
we've had some history.
Yeah. When the Steelers are in town, Arrowhead Stadium lights up even a little bit louder, I think, than it does most cases when the Steelers are in town and when either the Broncos or the Raiders are in town. And I think that's something that will help propel this Chiefs team to a victory and could make it interesting. This is it's 3:25 on CBS this Sunday, and it's going to be a fun one.
And I think one player I think that's really going to have to step up is Marcus Peters. He gave up a touchdown to Terrell Pryor a couple weeks ago versus Washington. Gave up a touchdown, I believe, last week to DeAndre Hopkins. It may not have been DeAndre, but he did catch 3, so it very well could have been. And so definitely going up against the league's best wide receiver in Antonio Brown, he's going to have his hands full, and I think we're going to definitely see some double teams by Bob Sutton.
Yeah, he's going to be tasked with what has been almost impossible over the last 5 years and covering Antonio Brown. And so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It'll be interesting to see how the game goes. And I think with that will wrap up our discussion this week on college football and the NFL. And for Evan Brown, I'm Ryan Elliott, and this has been the X106 podcast.